Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to Hive Live. Super excited to be here today. Broadcasting from Baltimore. Yeah, we're live. It's so great. We're on. My name's Sage. Thanks for joining us. I've been really looking forward to this interview with a colleague and a newer friend. We're going to talk with Sarah Petty today. She's going to tell you a little bit about herself. But thanks for tuning in. It's been an amazing month. We have some incredible interviews coming up this week. Tomorrow, we're going to be learning about systemic constellations, and then some more healers at the end of the week. So, anyways, check the schedule. It's a great week coming up. So thank you for. It's like so brave that people come on and do this with me. So I want to first thank you for coming on and also being my tech offsite coordinator for Hive Live.
Yeah, it's been fun.
That's awesome. Sarah's been one of its biggest supporters. So
hey guys.
Really psyched to have you on. So let's just start and just give us a little snapshot of who you are before we get into deeper into the healing stuff.
Okay. So I'm Sarah Petty. Hi guys. I wouldn't have, or at least I wouldn't have found my healing journey at the time that I did if I hadn't gone to art school up here in Baltimore, Allen
cool.
Institute College of Art.
So your undergrad was in art school in Baltimore.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and so it's kind of fun to be here today.
Mm.
I started getting acupuncture when I was 19 in art school.
Oh, cool.
And I was such a wreck. I was such an emotional wreck. And somebody had told me, go to this person who actually was a student of the school that I'd end up going to.
Oh, wow.
Tai Sophia. And so I went, I would meet her in the student clinic and see her regularly. And 3 months into getting acupuncture, I just felt like I had so much more choice when it came to my emotions, and I let go of a lot of baggage.
Wow.
I forgave a lot of people and just let go of a lot of stuff. So it was such a great facilitator for that.
So at 19, you're in art school. You go to the student clinic for acupuncture because your friend told you to.
Yeah.
And within 6 months, you had started releasing things and letting things go.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So it changed my life. I feel like it saved my life in a lot of ways, and wouldn't be the person that I am because it just basically got me out of my own way. And helped me mature and grow, and
that's amazing.
Yeah, it was awesome.
So obviously it was that inspired you not only to obviously you're an artist, but then to pursue acupuncture school.
Yeah, and I mean I was young when I was in art school.
Yeah.
And I didn't quite understand the art community that I was in at the time, and it felt kind of isolating, and I wasn't really sure of what value we had to the community. My viewpoints changed now, but at that time it was just very confusing, and I felt like I wanted to do more. I wanted to contribute more, and my acupuncturist at the time said, "Oh, I could see you doing this my senior year of college." I was like, "Yeah, okay." But I got a book, Lonnie Jarrett's, I'm not going to remember his book. Acupuncturists out there do know it though, but and I studied it for a year on my own, and it was still a passion. So I then went to school for it.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
It kind of makes me. There's so much to talk about that that we can talk about, but. Is there I just want to ask, is there an overlap between art and acupuncture for you?
Yeah.
Just because there was such a bridge there.
Yeah, well, I was so into sciences, human sciences, anatomy, physiology, and I took a lot of art classes. I mean, I took a lot of science classes when I was in art school. And
they have science classes in art school?
Well, not many. I had to take them off-site.
Oh, that's cool. But it was like a passion, it was like an interest of yours.
Yeah, I always loved human biology, anatomy, physiology. So, and then of course, the anatomy piece being with the traditional art classes of figure drawing, and I really got to know the human body in a different way, and so when it came to point location and figuring out, I had a visual map that some people didn't quite have, like didn't examine the form so much, you know, and I had painted it, I had sculpted it, I really got to know it in that way, so that definitely helped.
And in fact, a lot of your art is still very much, I mean, I follow you on Instagram, and I get to see that you create skulls, and, I mean, you do a lot of different types of art, but that it very much still is informing your art.
Yeah, and then of course, we're talking about the healing art, right, and so there's, you know, I feel like I learned a lot about life when I went to art school, and so that just kind of continued on with the healing art and just the way we look at the world. Yeah. So and the way we look at each other. So. Yeah. Like, of course, one informs another. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What would you say, you know, we had Ann Helfrich on last week, who also went to your...
I love Ann.
We both love Ann. We have a few
Fan
very
club.
important... Yeah, we love you, Ann. She's going to love that.
Yeah.
And Sadie.
Oh, yeah.
So you guys went to the same acupuncture school called Tai Sophia, studied 5-element acupuncture. We're going to talk about a little bit about acupuncture first, and then I also know that you've been studying somatic experiencing, which we also have in common for the past couple of years. So I want to talk about that too, and get into like a little bit more of some of the nuances of the healing people can do. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Well, I really enjoyed the talk you did with the yoga and Ayurvedic instructor and practitioner.
Just the other night with Regina.
Because you know, Ayurvedic and 5-element have some similarities, taking the pulse and looking at what you eat and looking, you know, with Ayurvedic it's 3 types. With 5-element there are 5 types, I guess. So you look at the seasons and you look at patterns and rhythms and just how the outside climate informs our internal climate and where we might get hung up or stuck or excessive or deficient throughout the year. And also, you know, there's so many ways of dividing it, but just that's kind of a broad brush. And you know, in 5-element acupuncture, we talk about chi, energy, and first there's the energy, which there are many nuances to, many different characteristics of energy. So first there's the energy, and then the organ is merely the fruit of the energy. So like kidney. First there was kidney chi, and then there were the kidneys.
So
born out of that.
Energy precedes, you know,
form.
Matter.
Yeah,
form,
exactly. Right.
So for every organ, there's it's a different particular energy.
Yeah. And then, you know, depending on the person's constitution, their makeup, you know, what they were born into, what they acquired, they will have a different relationship with each of the energies.
And part of your role as a practitioner is to do a really full intake and feel. Part of what you're trained to do is to literally feel where they're deficient. Yeah. And you know, I've seen y'all do that through pulses. Yeah. Listening to pulses. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's 12 pulses, and there's 6 on each wrist, and when we put our fingers on a person's pulse, there's an invitation to enter their energetic body and to read that body. And I mean, that it can be a snapshot of what's happening right now in this moment, and it can also be, you know, a time capsule of like things acquired in their life. So it can get pretty deep. And then I mean, it can show up in it shows up in the color of a person's complexion, the way that they speak, their smell, you know, how the things that they report to you about how they handle situations, and I mean, all the energy shows up on every single level.
Yeah. So. And with acupuncture, you're looking through a lens which is treating the energetic body as much as the physical body.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it's more like, you know, you touch one, you're touching everything.
Okay.
So mind, body, spirit.
Right.
Everything is affected.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So holistic and
Yeah.
thousands of years old. and for, you know, and I think we talked about this with Anne, like with acupuncture, you know, for people who still don't totally understand it, it can treat a wide variety of things, symptoms and health issues.
And actually, it was my somatic experiencing education that helped me understand how that was so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so like, you know, I love, Anne was talking about, you know, she brought up your body is wise, your symptoms are your teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that we heard over and over again in school.
Your body is wise, your symptoms are your teacher.
Are your teachers, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I was kind of like, yeah, okay. And then kept going, you know, it didn't really land for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, again, like I'm such a science person. And so when I went to Somatic Experiencing, and they're talking about the nervous system, and they're talking about regulation, and, you know, they're talking about sympathetic arousal and parasympathetic sedation, and they're talking, I'm like, oh, they're talking about yin and yang.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, they're talking about, you know, oh, acupuncture is a regulation therapy.
Oh, interesting.
Period.
Right.
So it's like, oh, right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, it's not targeting specific things. It's building that foundation of, you know, regulation, you know, trying to take, you know, I talk about each needle being kind of a tuning fork. There's its own vibration, its own message. And so it's like, here's health, and it's sort of like the parasympathetic sedation, sympathetic arousal, you know, that whole, this is how life flows.
Right. And when you say parasympathetic, sympathetic, we're talking about like, maybe another way to put that for people who don't know that is like high stress, like lots of
activate, you know, like could be going towards anxiety.
Right, could be going towards anxiety, like escalation.
Or excitement.
Yeah,
you know,
or excitement, right?
Yeah, the higher energies.
Exactly.
And then parasympathetic sedation, the rest, digest, the chill, freeze, or collapse.
Right, exactly. There's extremes at both ends that get into kind of like red zones.
Right.
That are difficult.
Right.
Yeah. And the idea is to not get stuck in them, and a lot of us are stuck in them for various reasons, or can get stuck in them.
Right, or be replaying the same patterns, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I think before I knew about SE, I was looking at, you know, there's a lot of, so here's the health wave, and it's always there. Sometimes we can't hear it, almost like it's a radio channel, right? And then there's static, and there's dissonance, and all the stuff that gets overlaid, and it starts to get harder to hear that message of health and where we know how to flow into. And so then each needle is a tuning fork in trying to clear some of that static and dissonance out, so that we can then tap into the resonant field of that health. So
I love how you talk about that.
Yeah. So then when I found SE, I was like, oh, it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That's what we're doing.
So somatic experiencing, when you started to enter that, it sort of, it didn't necessarily it didn't sort of tell you the framework, but it sort of made the framework come alive for you as far as like innate health and tapping that and being able to sense that and feel it. And
I got into a deeper flow with it because there was just more of me that understood what I was doing.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about somatic experiencing, because really you're my first somatic experiencing practitioner.
Cool.
You're my first of 5, actually. So it's like really exciting to, as you know, folks probably know, I'm also a somatic experiencing practitioner, and I know we have folks out there watching who are somatic experiencing practitioners. So maybe we just talk a little bit about what that is, right?
Oh, okay.
Well, we're here together.
Right, I know, right? You can you know, what's funny is actually I took the SE 3-year training.
SE being somatic experiencing.
Somatic experiencing, I took the 3-year training. Again, it's so funny. Maybe I'm just like, my nervous system needs like many angles to look at something. It took somatic experiencing touch for me to really get it, for me to like really, again, be deeply engaged in the process.
Yeah.
There was a part of me that was engaged in it.
Yeah.
And it was more north.
Yeah.
In my mind and in my, but like when I got to touch, it's like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden all of my senses were on in a way that they weren't before, and I was able to just be with people. Attunement, you know, like attunement.
Yeah. Right. So somatic. So let's just break it down for a second. So somatic experiencing is a modality that Peter Levine coined and innovated through studying the biological mechanisms of animals and of humans, and of the fight, flight, freeze response that animals have.
Yeah.
And in the animal world, he noticed that when there was a predator-prey situation, and the predator got away, like from a very scary situation, like the tiger's coming to eat the gazelle, but the gazelle was able to get to safety. What did the animal do when they got to safety?
Pronking.
They So they did something called pronking, which is to like celebrate physically, and they also would shake out their extra adrenaline from the chase. Yeah. Because a life-death situation, perceived or real, a lot of adrenaline, all the cortisol dump in our system is so intense, and it's just like anything you could do to survive, your body organizes around that.
Yeah, and then there's natural mechanisms to dial down from that.
Right.
And then, of course, we're humans, so we have a neocortex, we have this world that we live in with, the communities and what's right behavior, what's wrong behavior, and there's so many ways that we can interrupt that natural process. Right,
yeah, exactly. So the natural process for animals is just to discharge or deactivate the energy and then go about their regular life, and everything's okay. They don't have that extra adrenaline stored up. But as humans, like you said, we have this neocortex, which just basically means, like, we fall off our bike, and I got to get back up because
there's shame, there's embarrassment, there's, oh, I hope nobody saw me.
Exactly. And that fear or that fright energy, or just maybe somebody says, don't cry, or don't be afraid. You shouldn't be afraid of that, right. Whatever. And so the fear gets suppressed. And it's not just we're not talking about emotional fear. We're actually talking about physiological fear.
Yeah.
And when that physiological adrenaline gets suppressed, where does it go? Right? It doesn't just, if it doesn't have a chance to get shaken out, it often gets sort of lodged and embedded in a certain way in our body to sort of come up later when we get re-triggered, or it may come out sideways. So it's literally a physiological pocket of fear energy.
Yeah.
And that's so what somatic experience is doing is it's sort of working with people who have some of that energy sort of stored in their body from a past trauma, and all we mean by trauma is something that was overwhelming, that wasn't fully processed.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So somatic experiencing is working with that energy with people, right? And how does some of that energy show up for people, like fight, flight, freeze energy?
Yeah. I mean, they might be really super anxious. They might, something that I get a lot is, I don't know how to slow down, and so I'm always tripping over my feet, or I'm making mistakes, or I am absent-minded, or all this, they just don't know how to slow down. And or it can be people that are might not seem like they have a lot of spark, might not seem like they have a lot of in Chinese medicine we call it shen, but like spirit, like it's just not sparkly. There's like a lack of vitality showing up, and there's lots of ways that it can
absolutely show
up. But and again, that's like where acupuncture, again, just being a regulation therapy, why it's so one of the best ways to work with PTSD is it's that support. It's that okay, you're up here, or you're down here, or you're in this up and down, or you've got the gas and the brake on at the same time, and you're burning yourself out. It's just like, let me support you so that these can start to slow down and find less spiky places.
Yeah. I you know what just happened, which was so beautiful, is like you put your hands out. I feel like you just showed part of the role of the healer, which is like, and I could really feel it, which was kind of like, let me support you.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so for some reason, like really strongly in my head right now is like, what's the role of the healer? So like that's sort of here right now for some reason. And so when you did that, it's just like, you know, because we're exploring so much of that in this series.
Yeah.
That in so many different ways and so many different modalities, there's this like, how can we support you so that the extremes of whether it's anxiety or depression or stuckness can start to soften and start to reset themselves.
Yeah, and I mean, healing happens when there's a sense of safety and trust in another person. Yeah. So I think that's like, you know, if I didn't have any other skills, if I can create a safe space for somebody and they can trust me, really, that's like when the magic happens. So
Can we talk a little bit more about that? Because
Sure.
I think it speaks to some of the touch work and the somatic resilience work, you know? Like, because I think I almost feel like sometimes we don't talk about safety and trust enough as healers as the foundation for healing. Yeah. Like, because so many of us in Western culture, we get conditioned to know to do it right. Yeah. And sometimes doing it right, like doing the modality right, we almost skip over that relational attunement piece. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And what we mean by relational attunement is like knowing that we're here together, you're my practitioner and you're present with me and you're, you know, like
you're with me.
Yeah.
And you're I don't have to explain anything because you're already there.
Yeah, right.
So I don't have to work. I don't have to work to be with you.
Yeah.
And if I don't have to work to be with you, what's possible?
Yeah. Right, because you're always, because so much of us are always working. Managing,
adapting.
Right.
You know, hiding. Whatever. Mm-hmm. You know, yeah.
So safety and trust. What are some other ways, like, I mean, you know, I don't want to over talk about this, but like, you know, like, what are some ways that you establish that with people?
Well, you know, and there have been some clients where I've had to kind of explain to them that it's a two-way street. You know, like we both have to, we're in this together, we're creating this together. I have to feel safe, you have to feel safe. And so I think me feeling safe, and again, I'm glad that I've worked in my office 7 years now, and so it's definitely potent with my energy. You know, so that is something that is there as a resource. Yes. For me and them. Nice. But what are some? I mean, it's so funny. I know that. How? It's a good question. It's a good question. Yeah. How is it? Again, I think the attunement part is really important. You know, if I'm attuning, if I'm meeting them where they are. Yeah. If I'm empty and I'm still and I'm quiet and I'm listening on every single level of my being. Yeah. Then how can I not hear what they're asking for? Yeah. I like that you said empty. Yeah. Right? Like you're without agenda. No, yeah. And again, that was one point that I thought earlier is like, I've totally thrown out what a session looks like. Yeah. You know, because it's so individual. Yeah. And sometimes it's not needles that day. You know, even though my hat is acupuncture, it's like that's where the art is too. It's so creative and it's so spontaneous. Yeah. And it's happening in the moment. Yeah. And it's just the attunement is so important. And I think it's something that how many of us have not had a time in our lives where we didn't feel like we were met. Yeah. Like we didn't feel like somebody was attuned to us. Yeah. And when that happens early. Yeah. Which is what I'm getting into, what I really love. Yeah. is, hey, let me attune to that early place.
Yeah. What do you talk when you say early? What do you mean?
Yeah. In utero to, you know, to whatever age they come to me, but early. You know, I'm taking another somatic experiencing class, Somatic Resilience and Regulation, and it is talking about in utero to your first 3 years, and you know, things that can be not helpful during that time, that can facilitate trauma. I don't know.
Yeah, we might talk about an example just so people can understand.
Like trauma. I mean, trauma is a funny word too, because I think we have an idea of what trauma is and what it looks like, and that we can compare one to another. And it's again, like you said it so beautifully, something that overwhelmed the system in a way that it wasn't able to
fully process. Yeah.
And so it could be birth trauma. It could be I have a mom who has an attachment issue where she can't attune to me. My mother can't attune to me. It could be early surgery. It could be you know, a toxin. It could be
stress in the household.
Stress in the household.
Yeah.
Stress. The mother being stressed while you're, you know, in the womb.
Yeah.
So there's so many things.
Yeah, so many disruptions
that can happen early.
Right? And so, and part of what we're saying is like that. Just if you have disruption, it doesn't mean it's traumatic.
Right.
Really, what we're talking about, because there's a lot of resilience in our. Like, we know we're so amazing. We have so much health.
Yeah.
You know, at the beginning of conception, which probably doesn't make sense, but you guys get what I'm saying, and that for different people and different systems, there could be things that are just too much.
Yeah,
right? It's just too much.
I think Kathy had said something around the timing of it too. You know, that there was an intervention that came in a timely manner to scoop you up and support you.
Right. So if there's a disruption, there could be that if the support's there afterwards.
Exactly. That
right?
There can be the repair.
Right. Like if you fall down a handful of stairs as a baby, like that happens.
It does.
Like it's uncomfortable. There's probably shame. There's probably like whatever happening, but that can be very supported and processed right afterwards with the right care.
Right.
So it's not like those things aren't. There's so many things that are just inevitable that are going to happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why I love that book, Trauma-Proofing Your Child, right?
Yeah.
It's not about, you know, you can't, life is traumatic, things are going to happen.
Right.
But can we instill resilience?
Yeah, and cultivate that.
And
as parents, cultivate that. So that's a great book.
Yeah, it's a great
Trauma-Proofing Your Kids.
Yeah.
Trauma-Proofing something. But it's by Peter Levine and Maggie Klein, and it's a great book for parents. So we'll put that in the notes for today.
Yeah.
For sure, because it's a fantastic book.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is so powerful. So we're talking, so I love this, like, so part of what you are working with now that you're starting to tune in, probably doing your own work.
Definitely.
Right? Because I don't think you come to working with early childhood attunement issues, so I say this personally, without having done your own work around some of the healing from your own misattunements.
Yeah.
Right? So some of it's personal, and then that brings you, like, I love that brings the lens of how do we, because one of the things, right, I'm so excited to talk to you because I think there's so many people who are like, well, yeah, you know, I know that, like, I had a C-section, you know, I was a C-section, and, you know, like, lots of stuff was going on, and I know the birth was hard, and that's what my mom said, but how am I supposed to, like, I don't have a memory of that, right? Like, a lot of people say, like, I know stuff happened, but I have no cognitive memory of it, so how am I supposed to work with it? Right. So maybe, could you talk a little bit about how you see that as a practitioner?
So, I think, for right now, what's available is my own experience of my own healing with it, I guess.
Yeah.
But hopefully
if you feel like talking, too.
Yeah, sure. I was adopted at 3 months, and so I've been working on early stuff for me, and I think there was the question of what's uncomfortable, right? You know, sometimes healing is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
The thing with early stuff is there's not a lot of language involved.
Right, because there was not a lot of language.
Developed yet.
That's right.
So it's kind of an interesting place to go to on both sides, practitioner and client, because you're navigating a place that you can't, like your neocortex isn't there to save you, isn't there to like be your analytical anchor.
Yeah. It's not a cognitive experience.
It's not.
Yeah.
So clearly not, which is also why it's so powerful, because you really have to give even more permission, let go even more, to go to those really early places.
Yeah.
And for me, it took a really long time for my own work to organize and start to make sense in a way. So that can be scary.
Sure.
But as a practitioner, I think it's more, I'm with a baby right now.
Yeah.
And oh my God, I love it. I love this baby.
Yeah.
And, I'm going to show up for this baby.
Yeah.
And I'm going to listen to this baby. And I'm going to give it what it needs.
Yeah.
Right here, right now.
Right. What it didn't get. Yeah.
And it's so powerful.
It's so powerful.
Especially, I'm thinking right now off the top of my head, this guy who I've been treating for a while, who's, he a lot of things, special ops, all this. And he was an infant. He's been an infant on my table several times.
When you say that, just for people who don't understand what that means, like, infant. What do you mean an infant? Like,
right. So when I'm supporting somebody's nervous system and they feel safe enough, they will go to whatever place and time their upset was. So their nervous system and their physiology, everything follows that timeline. So they'll, like when I say infant on my table, I was holding his kidneys, and his whole body is a wiggly infant. Yeah,
like it sort of came into your consciousness.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he, after he came out of it, knew he was an infant. He was shocked that I knew he was an infant. But yeah.
What did he say?
Well, first of all, he grew up in a very unsafe household.
Is it okay to be talking about it?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't give a name. Or
No. No, I just wanted to slow that down for a second.
Yeah. Good. He grew up in a very unsafe household, very early on, and he was not safe from the get-go. And so to have an adult woman, and his mother was not a safe person, to have an adult woman hold his infant self in this sweet, safe, precious way, where I am like, you are so valuable, you are so sweet, you are so, perfect, just the way you are, was profound for him.
Right, his system was able to able to interact with that offering that you were holding.
Yeah, and no words.
Yeah.
No words.
Yeah.
Because there aren't any.
Right.
So.
And because of that, his system, that aspect of him gets to experience that.
Well, yeah, like what if he had grown up a secure child? How would life show up for him? If that piece wasn't stuck in there. Yeah. And the way it's showing up is incredible. Yeah. His family life is different. His relationships are different.
Because of this work. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
So like literally because of this support that that you all are doing together, and this deep felt sense of love and care and attunement, his relationships have started to change.
Yeah. Yeah, and his work life, his relationship to his work has changed. Like he's not so snagged by everything isn't a saber-toothed tiger. It takes a lot more for him to get up to rage.
Yeah, and everything being a saber-toothed tiger would be a very understandable reaction to life growing up in an unsafe household.
Yeah.
Like the perception of everything being a threat.
Yeah, because when we're that little, we're undifferentiated. Like we don't see ourselves as an individual, and this person is this, and we can analyze the whole situation, and it's so confusing. Yeah. And it's hard to decipher what's happening. We and that's why we go inward, and we're like, oh, it's my fault, or it's all of that.
Right. It must be my lack of. Yeah. Yeah, because you don't know any better, because you never had it. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So people mature with this work, and they become more differentiated, and they start to make better choices for themselves, and they get to really fully embrace their resourced adult self. So of course life flourishes for them. Right, just so much more choice. Like choice. Like in your resourced adult self. Resourced adult embodied self. Embodied self, right? Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. And then that just keeps emerging. Yeah. Right, more choice, more health. Yeah. And what I love is they don't have to make it happen. It just happens. Yeah. Right. It just naturally shows up for them then. It's just naturally available. It that encapsulation of the trauma, when we're able to release it and move it, then that power is theirs. Right. Again. It's not stuck. All that power isn't wrapped up in the contraction and the holding on and the bracing for the saber-toothed tiger. Right. It's able to slowly release, and then they sort of regain a fundamental part of their being. Yeah, and what I've also realized is that, when we're so young and we have all that going on, our viewpoint of the world and our viewpoint of our values and our morals and everything gets totally skewed to that environment that we grew up in that wasn't supportive and safe. Right, so our whole life kind of develops around those beliefs. Our responses and all of that. And I know that for myself, and then I know that for my clients, that it's a process through becoming more aware and more enlightened too. You have so much more compassion and so much more awareness and so much more self-love and capacity to love others. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, it is awesome, because you can't give what you didn't get. Right. I think that's part of this anyways. Sure. And so so this quality of healing work is offering something that often folks haven't gotten before, or have gotten in a way that's been inconsistent. Yeah, inconsistent. Or overlinked with something scary. Exactly. Right? But not maybe like a pure offering of it that is safe enough to receive. Right. Right? Yeah. Yeah. Coming from a place, a person who's regulated. Right. Yeah. Right, a person who's regulated, which means embodied, present. Yeah. Available to the moment and has choices. Yeah, right. Yeah. Anything else you want to add about what somatic resilience means to you? Because I think it's a really exciting, sort of idea and term that is kind of emerging. I think that, again, that word choice is so important, and that came up with Anne's talk too, and where our school was always talking about choice. You have the choice. You have the choice. You have the choice. Oh, right. Like here it is, right? Right, a little straight, right? Yeah. Right. And so I think that the somatic experiencing really kind of opened up more compassion for me too, for myself and for others. Is that we don't always have a choice. There are moments where we don't, and that's that going into overwhelm. Yeah. And that wasn't something that was I remember being discussed in school. It was the focus was about choice. Yeah. And maybe it was choice and how do we facilitate people having choice. But I see too many posts about you can choose and you can choose, and my trauma self is ouch, that hurts. Because okay, what's wrong with me if I can't choose? Right. I can't. She's like loving my heart in this moment.
Yeah.
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 But there must be something wrong with me. I must not be evolved enough.
Right.
Right. And then I sort of feel bad about myself.
Or I'm broken, right?
I'm broken, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So it's like that I realized, physiologically, I do not have the choice. My brainstem has overridden my neocortex.
Yeah.
The place where I would say, yes, I have choice.
Right.
Yes, I can come from my highest self.
Right. And your brainstem is millions of years older than your neocortex.
Yeah.
And I think it's 16 times faster than your neocortex, at least.
Yeah.
As far as what we're choosing physiologically.
Yeah. And so brilliantly made, of course.
Right.
You know, I don't want to be analyzing, should I run? Should I try to punch the bear? Should I,
Right.
I just want to go.
Right.
I want to respond. I want to do, so it's important that it has that mechanism.
Yeah.
But,
and sorting that out is, in this day and age where there is so much threat on so many levels for people.
Yeah.
Whether it's like I can't pay the rent this month, or, the macro situation that's going on, and just the constant physiological management of there's the brain that wants to be positive or whatever, and then there's the multitude of physiological responses.
Wants to be positive and wants to do it right.
Yeah, and wants to do it right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so would you say part of, part of what I like to talk about on Hive Live is like, if somebody doesn't come and see any of these practitioners, like what are some things to think about how to start to learn how to work with, like your physiology or your, like what we've been talking about. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, any exercises you give people. I think
I'd say pay attention to the times where you feel less threat. Be curious about those times where you feel less threat. And, what are the conditions, or like what is your activity, or who are you around, or what are you around, and start to be curious about like how do I create conditions where I have less threat.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
so just start to pay attention.
Like for me, it's like Great Falls National Park, where there's like the falls, and it's just this powerful water that's always there and always rushing. And so I'll go there, and as a 5-element acupuncturist, water is heavily in my constitution. So just being in the presence of water that is powerful is very healing and very nourishing for my system. So just paying attention to that and be like, I know that's a resource for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. How can I create a resource catalog for myself?
A resource being?
Something that helps you feel a little less edgy.
Yeah. Right. And that could be whatever to each person.
Yeah.
Yeah, that can just help sort of shift gears a little bit.
Yeah. Like if you feel yourself ratcheting up, what helps you kind of start to do that?
Right, just kind of start to do that. And you just said have a resource library. Did you say library list?
Library, yeah. List, yeah, either one.
Yeah, so that's a great tool to sit down and say these are all the things that help me, when I'm going up.
Yeah. Level
out a little bit.
Yeah, and then know that things are gonna break down. And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's human.
Yeah.
That also I use the cup with my clients of just how full is your cup right now?
Oh,
can you gauge that? Like, can you get a felt sense of that? Start to really notice, when are you almost full to the brim, whereas all somebody has to do is look at you in a way that you'll perceive as a certain way, and you're gone. You've lost it. You're off the handle.
Yeah.
And so that resource library is like, what's going to empty my cup a little bit?
Yeah. Because if you have empty your cup, you have more space
for that capacity.
For charge to go.
Right.
That's great. I love that tool. I've never thought about that tool. How full is your cup?
Yeah.
And then if it's way high, what are the things I need to add to bring it down a little bit?
Which is just starting that self-awareness, right? And that tuning in and that self-attunement.
Yeah.
So Yeah.
And this is for everybody.
Everyone.
This isn't for people who are interested in healing.
Yeah.
This is sort of like...
Usually people get the cup thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, totally. No, it's really simple, but super profound. I'm like, well, I'm like, well,
Yeah.
we're going to have a session after because I'm going to tell you about my cup. No, it's all good. My cup's all right, you know? One of the questions I love to ask, and maybe we've already covered this, is there anything else in, the healing arts or as a practitioner or that you're seeing in your experience as an artist or an acupuncturist in your treatment space or in your world that you think we should be talking about more, that we're not talking about enough?
There's so many things. Wow. Well, again, I would say that one of the things that I've been doing with my clients a lot is encouraging them to take art classes or do things that are creative already in their life and just make space for that. Because, again, that's engaging the right side of the brain. And, I love in Somatic Experiencing, we learned that healing happens in the right side of the brain. That's our embodied place. That's our sensory place. And, people can analyze and think that they've gotten over something, but then the body is still having physiological evidence that, you're not really over it. So the arts, I think, are hugely important and have been so hugely important in my own healing throughout my life. So I'd say that's one thing that I think is accessible, hopefully, to most people out there. Something creative.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
One thing that I'm going to recommend y'all do is if you're on Instagram is to follow Sarah, because her art is actually so beautiful to follow, and I could talk about that for an hour actually. So I really appreciated that. Maybe let's end, or I think we'll end. Maybe there'll be another question with. It's funny, it keeps coming through, which is just to ask, what do you feel like is the role of the healer?
Yeah.
In today's world?
Yeah.
As it is. What, and it's a big question, but really just from your perspective.
Yeah. I think a part of what's coming up right now is, again, safe space. And part of safe space is non-judgment and being open and compassionate and, not, again, I feel like I didn't really, growing up, I didn't grow up with, we're all one, or there's this oneness, but as I deepen my own healing work and I am experiencing things in my treatment room with people, we really are all one. There really is no separation, division, anything, and I it's something that I thought was hokey and weird, but I just feel like it's really solidifying in my experience. Is just, Anne put it beautifully, perfectly, with Thich Nhat Hanh's speech, right? And
right, I am the enemy.
Yeah.
Whoever the perceived enemy is, I am that.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, and so it's sort of I think the healer is can I expand to be with more parts of my pain?
Yeah. Can
I expand to be with more parts of my shadow? And really be with them without judgment? Can I really meet somebody and see that I can love everyone if I can, fully accept myself and fully accept everyone else, and just realize that we all have pain.
Yeah.
We really are all in this together.
Right. Right.
What else? However, how else can you look at it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a
and
variety.
we've all contributed.
Yeah.
We've all contributed. So it's that's one thing that I try not to go on social media and get into the conversations that can be pretty heated, and but every once in a while I'll get snagged by something somebody says, and I'll just be and I just really want you to know such and such, just somebody saying, I wasn't really into the women's movement until like, you know, the election, and now I realize like it's important. And it's like, it was always important.
Yeah.
And if there was a sister you weren't backing up before, like you know, you were contributing. You know?
Yeah, that's really well said.
Like,
right, and you say you were contributing from a thoughtful place, not a judgmental place.
No, right.
No, I know that, but I
Yeah.
just want to say that because
Yeah.
it can be so taken as that.
Oh, sure.
Because we're all like working out our like white. I'm working out my white fragility. Like we're all working out the places of our ego that are like, oh my God, you know, I don't want to, excuse me, do something wrong, you know.
Yeah.
But it's not really about that.
Yeah.
It's just about the places maybe where we didn't know, we couldn't see it.
We didn't know, exactly.
Our conditioning has been about denying it. So that, you know, whether it's been about power and privilege, or there's lots of, it's, you know, complex about why we may not have wanted to, or not been able to see something until now.
Right.
But what you're saying is the invitation to say, okay, you can, now you're sort of having this awakening, which is great.
Yeah.
And can you see that part of, you know, not seeing it before is the contribution to why it's here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So.
That's really, that's powerfully sort of, I'm really glad you named that.
Sure. Yeah. And just, I know it sounds hokey too. Love is so important right now.
Yeah.
And just practicing love every minute of every day, it's hard. It's hard to practice love in our own bodies. It's hard to practice love in our own families. It's hard to practice love in our communities, you know. But I think it's just keep practicing, because I think the role as the healer is to help expand that container, you know, empty that cup for ourselves and for the people that come to see us. You know, how can we build capacity so that we really can, I mean, being inclusive, you have to have the capacity for it.
Yeah.
So
it's a muscle, like kind of a muscle to build.
Right.
Yeah. To be deeply inclusive.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to talk about that in some later interviews, I think.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think it's such an important thing.
Yeah, it is.
It's awesome. Thanks for all that. So good. Wasn't it so great to have Sarah on? This is so great. Anything else that wants to be said before we wrap up? How do people get in touch with you, or how can they follow you if you feel open to sharing?
Yeah, I have a website that I haven't updated in a while.
So go to that or not.
Yeah, it's sarahpettyacupuncture.com. My Instagram, Echeveria Gifts, which is Echeveria_gifts. It's kind of a mouthful, but maybe if you write it down for people.
Sure thing.
ECHEVERIA_gifts.
Fantastic. So exciting to follow that.
Yeah, and I hope we continue to inspire each other.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's like such a privilege and an honor and a thrill to sit with you as a colleague and a friend and a fellow adoptee.
Yes.
Yes, adoptee power, you know.
We're an adoptee fellowship.
Yeah,
right?
totally. Yeah, we totally are a fellowship. So thanks so much.
Yeah.
You guys, thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow. I'm going to be on at around between 11 and 11:30 with Rainey George, Systemic Constellations Facilitator. Y'all, this work is phenomenal. I'm so excited to help talk about it. Dr. Salome Rahim talked about it when she was talking about healing from slavery and her lineage of racism and her experience. So tomorrow is going to be just as exciting as today, I think. Guys, love is it. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow. Be well. Have a great day. Bye.